Hello guys and welcome for another Eternum video. It's been a couple of days since Season 10 started and holy moly are we getting a treat. There is so much content when it comes to the endgame as well as all the things that are available for our progression, discovery and fun. I'm so happy that finally the dev team realized that each part of the game should be rewarding for the players, so this way they can pick and choose what they want to do in order to progress with their gear. Of course, things were not always perfect as we were struck with a huge queue times on all our servers. It has been an expected issue since the DLC Angry Earth, which brought to us the level 65 artifacts and mounts, is now completely free for all those who purchased the game before that. To speak in numbers, back in 2021 when the game got released, there were a couple of million players that bought the game, so those are now potentially returning players. But I don't want to speak about the game and the health of the servers right now, as today we are here to discuss a different topic. For the last couple of days I've had my aim on a build for which I prepared myself already before the patch. Since I'm a big fan of the spear both in PvP and PvE, I decided to invest my knowledge and passion into a build which can boost your performance and then make the spear even better. I know that the combination might sound a bit too crazy for some people, but the results are speaking for themselves, and in the last 3 days they were just amazing. Many people were also asking me on stream about the build, and since it's a hot commodity, I decided to make a short guide about it. Starting with the armor pieces, you want to get yourself the Old Crown as an artifact, since it will give you a bit of extra points on all attributes, as well as 3 gem sockets, which you can also replace now. Another cool thing is that you can even put rune glass gems in these sockets, and this would result in extra damage. For last perk on your defensive slot, probably the best choice would be between Enchanted Ward or Wellness. For the other pieces of gear there is quite a big similarity, and it's mainly due to the changes of Season 10. In short, most of the offensive perks which were previously used on weapons are now also slottable on your armor and jewelry pieces. This creates an opportunity to stack up one type of damage booster in order to achieve really high and consistent damage. The first perk that you want to get is of course Sacrificial Empowerment, as it will boost your damage with 1.5% at all times, and the only downside would be if you drop under 50% HP, as you will lose 1% of your armor. Slotting this charm on the 4 remaining pieces of armor will result in a total of 6% extra damage, which is quite nice. The second really good approach for a perk on your armors would be the defensive slot, and in those cases, like I said, Enchanted Ward or Wellness should suit you best. My choice probably will go towards the Enchanted Ward, but the nerf down to 2% can open a debate, and of course it's up to your personal choice. For third bonus on your gear, I believe that gem slot is probably a must-have. In the current patch of Season 10, the gem sockets are no longer a guarantee, and sometimes you will see items without them. But I personally think that the gems are an amazing tool for defense, and missing them would result in a really weak protection and most likely hard times for your survival. Even after their nerf to 2%, I still believe that you should aim to get them, so there goes my third slot of a perk. So far we have an offensive perk in the face of Sacrificial Empowerment, defensive one in the form of Enchanted Ward or Wellness, and of course the gem slot. This means that we are left with 2 open slots, and for both I think the best option is to aim for offensive perk and one specific choice which is quite unique but extremely powerful, and this perk is called Lifestealer's Draw. It gives you 15% lifesteal, and additionally it increases the lifestealing effects with 15% as well, as long as you didn't drink a survival potion in the last 13 seconds. In PvE this is quite doable, as you will be backstabbing a boss, standing on a sacred, or trying to dodge away from the attacks of the mobs in the catacombs. Also have in mind that you can easily trade damage with those mobs, as your hits will be recovering most of your damage as HP. The other perks that are really good for offensive slots can be enchanted for extra damage on light and heavy attacks, Rogue for extra damage on backstab hits, but my personal best would be probably Vicious, as it will boost both your normal attacks and abilities as long as you critically hit with them, and as we all know, all the backstabs are critical hits. The next thing we have to check are the jewelries for the build, and starting with the amulet, I think that again we have a drastic change compared to previous seasons. The main reason is the limit removal for defensive perks of all protection types, and this change is that it allows you to stack them. Exactly this is the reason why I think you don't really need a gem slot on your amulet, as on this same place of the gem slot you can have one extra protection for additional 8% more. My current best amulet would be with two protection slots, for example flame protection and strike protection, but this build can also be combined with other elements or physical types. As in each PvE activity, you will have mobs and bosses that will do elemental and physical types of damage combined. It would be best for you to know which ones you need, and this way you can prepare your amulets. For the remaining 3 slots, we want to again aim at the offensive perks, and here I think the best choice would be again Vicious, Thrust Harnessing for 3% empower, and Keenly Jagged for the bleeding effect. Of course, such piece with 3 offensive slots it's not easy to find, but having 2 would also be quite nice. For the ring there are a couple of options, but I will assume that you are a pro player and the new raid would not be an issue for you. That's why we want to have the ring from the raid called Spectral Rat, which will also be a part of the Enrage set. This will allow you to get the first passive of the set and reach 10 stacks of Enrage, which will equal to 10% of extra damage. The perks on the ring are also quite nice, and starting with the Infix, which will give you 20% lifesteal if you drop down under 70% HP, and of course the already known fact that Lifestealer's Drought is boosting that number even higher. Then we have an offensive slot for potential vicious perk, Empty Gem Socket, Unscattered Empowered for even extra empower as long as you don't get hit, and of course the last perk will be random as this ring is coming from a drop, but I hope for the best that you would acquire it with Thrust damage. The earring for the build is a bit hard to get again, but we need exact perks to make it perfect. On the first place you want to have Refreshing Move, which will reduce the cooldowns of your spear even further with 1% for each hit, as this will have an internal cooldown of 0.2 seconds. The slower hits of the spear are perfect for this, so you can maximize the potential of the perk. For the second perk we want to get a Gem Socket for that small but extra protection from a specific damage type. After that we want to focus again on offensive perks, as like I told you, we can place them anywhere right now. This means that adding another Vicious would benefit us even more in the damage zone. This way we are left with 2 remaining slots. I personally would prefer to go for 1 extra damage, but Enchanted Ward or Wellness for some extra survivability would definitely not be a bad thing. For last perk on the earring, I think Beloved is a goated perk, especially for raids, but if you are doing catacombs, probably another offensive or defensive perk would suit you best. And now, since we went over all the armors and jewelries, I think it's time for the easiest part, and this is the 2 weapons. On first place you need the artifact Inferno, and that's basically all you need to know about the fire staff. Like really, that's everything. You don't need to slot perks, you don't need to slot gems, you just don't care. You just need to have it so you can get the 15% of extra damage. The spear on the other hand is a bit more special. To make it useful and powerful, we need a specific combination of perks. The first one will be no surprise to anyone, and this will be the Enfeebling Skewer. We really need that weaken for all types of content, so don't miss on this one. Second and third perks, which I value on the same level, are any type of attunements and of course Sundering Stacks. If we are speaking about raids, attunement is probably the better choice, simply because Sundering Stacks is nice, but it cannot stack with other people, and since we have too many players on one raid, the chance of someone already having it is quite high. However, if you run Catacombs, I would say that it's literally BIS. For our 4th slot, we definitely want to have a gem socket, as this will open up our damage potential even more. For a type of a gem, I would suggest you to go with diamond or opal, but this again would depend on the content that you are aiming to do. If you are soloing your catacombs, probably opal is the better choice as you will be dodging a lot, but if you are doing something that has already a tank, like a dungeon or a raid, most likely a diamond would be your best choice. Last perk on your spear can be another offensive slot, and of course we would slot vicious on it, but if you are not so lucky to get an offensive socket and you get, let's say, a skill socket, you can feel free to add perforate for some extra damage on that ability. When it comes to attribute splits, it's quite simple. You just go for 350 dexterity and 230 strength. Yes, your constitution remains at 11. But if you think that this is too weak and you are dying a lot, I would suggest you to go with 50 constitution, 191 strength, and keep the dexterity at 350. Another small and nice addition could be 25 intelligence, so you can get that small extra boost, but I'm not sure if it's really worth it, so you can test it and see for yourself. For a Heartrune, you can definitely go in Catacombs with Brutal Dark Ascent for really hard damage and really nice sustain, but of course, if we are talking about raids and dungeons, probably you should team up with your friends and decide what would be the best for the whole group. And I think with all that info out of the way, now you know the best build for different types of PvE content for Season 10 in New World Eternum. There will be more guides and builds coming soon, so if you don't want to miss them out, make sure to subscribe to the channel and follow it. Another good source of information can be our Discord community server, where you can ask your questions or request build and guides related to the game. Now I leave you guys as I need to keep the grind. So I hope that you enjoyed the video, as I cannot wait to see you on the next one.